morning, beloveds. Just below the level of the camera is Sugar. So you might hear her little squeaky purr today. She's being a little clingy, I'm not sure why. But I endeavor to indulge any of the cats as much as I can when they're being clingy. Right. Got work to do now though, sweetheart. Okay, so you gonna stay? I have been for a walk and I'm clearly still not awake yet. It dropped a little bit, and so it was cool this morning. I got to wear a jacket, and I mentioned yesterday that the whistling ducks are back, and today I got a pretty good picture. I mean, he was at the top of a power line, so but I think it's good. They've got orange beaks, so they stand out pretty well against the blue sky. But the birds there were a lot of different bird voices this morning, so that was interesting. It's definitely springtime. Definitely springtime. So, yeah. 365, Science Mind. Let's see what March 26th. March 26th is. Oop. Dominion. That's what it is. Dominion. Okay, so March 26th, the title is Dominion. Each one of us has access immediately in our own consciousness to that absolute unconditional presence that molds and makes things out of itself, by itself, directly becoming the thing it makes. The secret of effective prayer lies in the realization that there is a power for good in the universe and that we can use it. That subtle presence we call mind or spirit is the giver and we are the receiver. But how can it make the gift unless we accept it? One of the first things to do is to learn to expect and to accept the divine nature flowing through everything we do. God is eternally present, and we are the instruments of its expression. But only as much of the divine essence is ours to use as we permit to flow through our complete and unrestricted faith. To understand our unity with God is the beginning of wisdom. To realize that we can express our divinity today should be the start of a conscious practice that will gradually conduct us to greater and greater experience of life. Thus, we will demonstrate not only that an infinite good exists, but that it is now operating in our experience. This is the purpose of the practice of science of mind. Our consciousness of the indwelling spirit and the embodiment of its gifts bring us into the dominion of good. Believing in the universal presence is as power for good, I now accept its action in my life. I know that there is a strength and a vitality, a livingness flowing through me and out into everything I do or say or think. I am the very embodiment of this divine presence. There is no sense of weakness or lack of strength. Rather, the fullness and the completion of it is always present, always activated. I combine the belief I have in it with the conscious use I make of it, completely accepting and no longer rejecting the flow of this power through me. And our Bible quote is, "When wisdom entereth into thine heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul, discretion will preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee. And that is Proverbs 2:10 and 11. All right. There's a lot. There's a lot in that. There's a lot in that one. Starting with this is going to sound a little odd, especially any of us who were raised Christian. How would you act if you were God? How would you act if you were God? Because that's effectively what Ernest Holmes is saying. That you are. You are not all of God, but you are a part of God. And what you are made up of is from God. God is, Spirit is the maker. And what Spirit makes out of itself. Or, I'm using those words. God is the maker, and God makes what God makes out of itself, which means you are made of God's stuff. You are made of Spirit. Are you acting like it? Would it change the way you moved through the world if you acted like you were God? Now, that does mean that you have to get really clear on what you think God is. If you think God is the great accountant in the sky and you judging everybody and writing people in books and sending people here and there, I don't want to, that's not the God I believe in. That is not how I'm going to act. So what I believe God is I believe that God is this creative, patterning intelligence that embodies the qualities of love and peace and joy and harmony and equality and equity and love. That is what I believe God is. So when I say that I'm going to act like God, then that's what I mean. I mean that I'm going to embody those qualities of love and peace and joy and harmony and creativity and be a gentle presence walking through this world. To be the calm in the storm, to be that soft place to fall. That's when I say. But I also recognize that God or Spirit has the power to do anything. Which means if I'm going to act like God, I have the power to do anything. Emma, which he kind of quotes Emma in here, Emma says that no one will come to you with a problem that you can't help them with. Can you solve it completely? Probably not. But you can provide an assist. You can provide a step. You can provide a light on the path. And that's what Ernest is I think that's what Ernest is getting at in here. It's like, you're made of God's stuff. Act like it. Act like it. All of those qualities that he has been teaching us that are the qualities of God, we all have those inside of us. And it's time for us to embody them. It's time for us to recognize that when we don't know the answer, we have somewhere to go because the answers are within us. And sometimes we go within and we look for an answer and we go, but I still don't see the answer. But because we've gone within and we have known that there is an answer, when we start to look around, we see the answer. The answer was there the whole time. But until we went within to know that there was an answer, we didn't see it. So yes, answers can come from outside of you, but you have to be willing to accept them. So that's kind of where I think that Ernest is going. And that's a hard ask to act like you are God, which is one of the reasons why Jesse uses the word godling, sapling, godling, you are a godling, because it's hard for those of us who were, it's probably hard for anybody with any idea of, the overwhelming nature of God, to stand here and say, I am God. I am, because I'm only a small, tiny splinter, which is why I use that term. I'm only a small, tiny splinter, but I'm still a splinter of God. Now, if everyone acted like that splinter of God, we would make up an amazing whole. So, dominion. I don't know why it's titled that. It's kind of an odd... He says it once in there. So each of us has access immediately in our own consciousness to that absolute unconditional presence that molds and makes things out of itself, by itself directly becoming that thing it makes. Okay, so we have access to it immediately, right now. There is nothing we have to do other than recognize it. But the absolute unconditioned presence that molds and makes things out of itself, by itself, directly becoming the thing it makes. Do I need to read it again? Because Ernest just said, you're God stuff. You're made out of God stuff by God. And then God becomes you. So, you have access. Because you're made of the stuff. By the stuff. You're made by the stuff. You're made of the stuff, by the stuff, for the stuff. You're made of it, by it, for it. Which literally means God needs you here. The secret of effective prayer lies in the realization that there is a power for good in the universe and that we can use it. That's Emma. That's Emma Curtis Hopkins. There's a power for good in the universe, and you should use it. You should use it. You can use it. The subtle presence we call mind or spirit is the giver, and we are the receiver. That's where we become the divine distributors, because we recognize that we have access to this power and we let it flow through us. But we're only as effective as the amount of power we let flow through us. How can it make the gift unless we accept it? One of the first things to do is learn to expect and accept the divine nature flowing through everything we do. It's not just the saints who are divine. Every single living being is divine, because they all have that divine spark in them. I know we don't all act like it, but we are. And we all have our moments, but we are. And it's the goal of Science of Mind to remind us, not to teach us who we are. We know who we are. In those moments, we know who we are. It's to remind us who we are. God is eternally present, and we are the instruments of its expression. But only as much of the divine essence is ours to use as we permit to flow through our complete and unrestricted faith. God never restricts the divine flow. God never restricts the divine essence. God never says no. We say no. We say we're not worthy. We say, I can't do this. We say. So we restrict the flow. So it is up to us to recognize who we are, to recognize that we are godlings, to recognize that we are made of that divine essence, to recognize that all of those wonderful qualities of God, all of those wonderful qualities of gratitude, of love, of joy, of peace, of harmony, of love, let me emphasize that word, are right here, right now, always. and act accordingly. To understand our unity with God is the beginning of wisdom. To realize that we can express our divinity today should be the start of a conscious practice that will gradually conduct us to greater and greater experience of life, to a greater and greater experience of life. So that's his ask, is to express your divinity as a conscious spiritual practice. And the more you do it, gradually conduct us to greater and greater experiences of life. It's like, here, if you do this every day until it becomes a default setting, so that we're acting like this more than we are acting like whatever we were before, by recognizing our divine connection, and recognizing everybody else's divine connection too, because that's part of the secret. It's like, oh yes, I am divine. So's everybody else. So we have to accept everybody else is divine too. It's not just, it's not an exclusive club. I hate to break it to you. The divine essence is not an exclusive club. Absolutely every living thing, every living being belongs to that divine club. It's not an exclusive club. So it behooves us to act like we are, but it also behooves us to recognize that so is everyone else. So we want to meet them on that. Well, it reminds me of that Rumi quote, in the field beyond right and wrong, that's where I'll meet you, which I just paraphrased. And that's kind of what Rumi's going. Rumi knew. Rumi said, everybody is divine. So once we get past the judgment and start to see each other as the children of God that we are, that's where I'm going to meet you. Whether you're ready or not, I'm going to meet you as a child of God. It's not an exclusive club. It's an inclusive club. Thus, we will demonstrate not only that an infinite good exists, but that it is now operating in our experience. This is the purpose of the practice of science of mind. He rarely comes out and says, this is it. This is it. The purpose of the practice of science of mind is to recognize the divinity in everything, to recognize that God stuff, to recognize that good. And sometimes we have to look for it because it's a little confusing here. It can be a lot confusing here. Sometimes we have to look for it. But the more we look for, the more we see. And the more we look for it consciously, that becomes our default setting. So we look for the good. We don't ignore the things that are not preferred. We don't. But we see the truth behind them. We see that divine spark in that person or that situation or that event or that place. We see the divine spark. And we work to bring that to the forefront. Our consciousness of the indwelling spirit and the embodiment of its gifts bring us into the dominion of good. Recognizing that God is within as well as all around. Recognizing that the spirit that animates us is all there is. Believing in the universal presence as a power for good, I now accept its action in my life. I know that there is a strength and a vitality, a livingness flowing through me out into everything I do or say or think. I am the very embodiment of this divine essence. Say that to yourself every morning when you wake up. First thing when you open your eyes, I am an embodiment of the divine essence. And see if that doesn't change how you move through the world. There is no sense of weakness or lack of strength. Rather, the fullness and the completion of it, capital I, is always present. God is present in full at every point in space and time, because God is not limited by space or time, hence infinite. Always activated, always activated. I combine the belief that I have it, capital I, with the conscious use I make of it, capital I. So I believe that I have it, and I make conscious use of it. I believe that I have the divine essence, and I make conscious use of that essence in everything that I do, say, think, am. Completely accepting and no longer rejecting the flow of this power, capital P, through me. Not from me, through me. Through me. The power doesn't come from me. It comes through me. And it comes through me to the degree that I allow. And that's choice. When God granted us choice, that's choice. Free will. Free will. When God granted us free will, God said, "You are my beloved child. You are made of my essence. But I will let you decide how much of that essence you let shine at any time." And some of us don't let it flow pretty much at all. And some of us, I was raised Catholic, like the saints, or Jesus. Jesus is an excellent example. Let that divine essence shine. And most of the rest of us are kind of plodding along. And you see flashes of it. Flashes of it. And that's where consciousness comes in. So that instead of seeing flashes of it, it becomes a consistent glow that grows brighter and brighter the more we practice it. So our mission today, should we choose to accept it, is to express our divinity consciously. To express our divinity consciously. To embody those God qualities. To embody those God qualities in everything we do and think and say. And practice makes permanent. So, practice. Practice, practice, practice. All right. So, as always, I encourage you to do something loving for yourself, do something kind for yourself, do something compassionate for yourself, whatever that looks like today. If you're in my area, I suggest opening the windows and listening to the birds sing, because it is phenomenal. I heard at least 3 different bird calls this morning, bird song, and it was amazing, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I always encourage you to do something to engage your mind and your body. Go for a walk, get some sun first thing in the morning, can really reset your day, and that walk can support that creativity. Go exercise that body of divinity that you have. And drink some water. But in the end, my goal is that you love yourself a little bit more, that you take care of yourself. Because you are a beloved child of God in whom Spirit is well pleased. Take care of yourself. Be kind, be loving, compassionate with yourself, so that you can be kind and loving and compassionate with others. It is the best gift that we can give, and it is one of the best ways that we can embody that divine. So, open the windows of your soul. Allow that breath of heaven to remind you, you do live in heaven now. Everything around you is made of God's stuff. And it's up to us to see it. And the more we look, the more we see, the more we see, the more there is. That's just the way the world works. All right, beloveds. I'm going to encourage you to have a wonderful day. It is Friday. I don't know if there's anything going on. So I know Reverend David will be on with you on Facebook Live around 5 p.m. I will be back with you around 9 a.m. I have an errand to run. So I will be coming to you from my car at 9 a.m. And I could be a little early, I could be a little late. We don't know. We'll see. That's the hazards of me having that Saturday morning appointment. So, do what you need to do to make it a wonderful day. Because you truly are a child of God. You are a godling. And you are loved. All right, beloveds?